Monday, February 7th, and we're going to get into Greek mythology and godisms and stuff like that, and Aeolus to entertain. Welcome back to no more being on Zoom. I mean, you didn't get to sleep in as late, but at least now I get to make fun of you to your face, so small win. We start your next big speech for a grade next week. So we did the little one for a grade. We've done practice ones. Next week, you're going to be doing big speech for a grade, where it's like 2 to 3 minutes. And on that one, it's like every time you do and, or like, it costs you a point off of it. You're going to have to prepare in some way, and things along those lines. Those of you who are still doing the secret word speech, that's on Friday. But the one for a grade will be next week, which I'll introduce to you guys then. That's why we keep doing the secret word speeches as practice. And I have updated the grades, so Friday's grammar test is on there. And then B points have been updated because if you played the game on Thursday, it got you points, which I'll put up there in a moment too. And then we have the Pointery thing. I think that's it. Grant?
Was it Greek mythology or Roman mythology with the whole, like, eating kids thing?
Both. It's Greek and Roman mythology is technically the same. It's just two different names for it.
It's a wheel.
It's a skateboard wheel.
Give me it.
It's just that, no, silly child. We're just going to go off the Greeks because it was the first one. Romans came later and then just changed the names of some of them. But yeah, it was the same story for both. Allie?
Do I ever get to learn about Norse mythology?
Unfortunately, not. At one time I wanted to, but time-wise, there's only so much we get a chance to do. Norse mythology is from like Sweden and stuff. It's the like Thor, Odin. It's just another type of religion that was out there. Mata.
So when we're doing speeches this week, like, do we have to do like on a specific thing?
Bet you'll find out when we talk about it on Thursday. That's why it says, explain everything to Mata on Thursday. Silly Mata. No, I'm just going to make you stand up and give a speech with no information whatsoever and just be like, go! You failed. No, I'm going to give you everything that goes into it.
It's fun.
Hi, Grant.
We should do such a good idea for the word speeches where you would make your word like, No one would think you would make your
True, but I also don't count it's not a real word.
What about like?
Possibly.
Like,
And those of you who did the chat challenge thing, if you won in the class, then you got 5 points. Second place was 4 points. Third place was 3. And then as long as you got a question at some point, you got a B point. So as long as you finished in those top spots, then I was at least able to give you something from there. And then the grammar, we'll keep coming back to it. That was just your grammar test, which overall people did fairly well on it. But we're going to keep doing more, and eventually you get like a tougher grammar test and stuff like that. But yeah. We have a Greek mythology page, which for the most part it's got all the posters on it. Mostly in case you have to take a quiz at home for some reason, which we should be doing them all here, or homework or something like that, it gives you access. Or a handout in case you're missing the blue sheet or something. Oh, by the way, put your name on blue sheet and white sheet because we're going to be using these for like 2 months. And if you lose them, you have to buy a new one. And being as that some of you guys have already struggled holding on to the secret word guessing sheet that we kept for like 3 weeks, I have a feeling that we might struggle a bit on this one too. So try not to lose them, and we'll come back and talk about the blue sheet here in a moment. If you do, then you can just reprint them off of there, but anyway. So, the big family tree thing on the white handout thing. If you take a look at giant family tree, Greek mythology can be confusing. One, you'll look at all the names and they're weird because they're names from like 2,500 to 3,000 years ago. So the names are definitely going to throw you off a wee bit. Plus, they have interesting connections of who marries who, as far as like brother, sister, who killed who and stuff like that. So hopefully this makes things a wee bit easier for you as we start getting into the stories. You can come back and sort of cheat and use this when it comes time for quizzes, tests, and stuff like that. If you flip that paper over, on the other side of it is a whole big list of gods. If you look at the little parenthesis bits, the thing in parentheses is the god's Roman name. So the first name is the Greek one we're doing, and then next to it is going to be the Roman name. Some Roman names change, some are the same. Like you look at Zeus, and his name was Jove or Jupiter. If you go up to Apollo, his Roman name was just still Apollo. So it just sort of depends on the god. Some of them had different names, some didn't. So it's Greek, Roman. The main ones, the Olympians, are the main 12 big gods, and then the important titans were the other ones we'll get into, and then that just gives you other ones to look at. This is not all of the gods. There's thousands of gods that you are not going to have to know. It's just that these were the main ones that pop up in a lot of the stories. So I was trying to give you guys a cheat sheet in case you need to look up a god, or if we start talking about one and you're like, I don't remember, you can go take a look at it and peek, and it sort of gives you a brief idea of what they did. Blue sheet. On the blue sheet that you have, these are notes that are going to take us about a month and a half to get done. You are going to turn them in, because I'm going to give you a grade for them, but here's the issue. I'm going to teach Greek mythology in a way that you've probably never had anything taught to you, because it is just going to be interconnected, me telling stories from one day to the next. If you know Greek mythology, it's not bad. If you don't know Greek mythology, it's going to be a bit of a struggle to keep everything together. And if you lose track of which god ate his babies, then this sheet comes back to help you out. And you can look on there and find the part that says God that ate babies. You're like, oh yeah, and so that'll make things easier on you. So the whole idea of the blue sheet is there's no handout to give you of the stories. So this way you can cheat by looking at your own notes. If you don't fill it in, that's fine. I mean, it's just a homework grade. It just means you can't use it when it comes time for the quizzes. My goal with it is to help you out. And I give you all the answers as we go through. So as long as you just sit here and nod your head at me, you'll get almost everything from it. It's just a matter of making life easier for you. And yes, there's like 60 questions on there, but again, it's over the course of a month and a half. So we'll get through like a handful of questions each day. Hi, Charlie.
Who is the god of cheeseburgers?
Oh, we'll get to that in a second. So the posters that you see up and around the room, the big posters over yonder are going to be the Olympians. The little posters, some of them are the same. So you have the ones that are back here behind Julian, those little postery ones there, little postery ones there. Some of those are Olympians, some of them are other random gods. And then you also have the big postery one that's right there, which is also some of the gods. And then down here, I have another family tree to help you out. Over here, another family tree to help you out. A story of a collection of different stories, and then just like another cheat. I'm trying to put as many cheat sheets around for you guys to look at to help you keep track of things. As I tell stories, hello for all. You want to grab each one of those papers on my desk and then put your yellow paper on my desk. There you go, good trick. And so the idea being to try and help you guys out, being able to look off of stuff and cheat as much as possible with this information, because I know it'll get confusing. Blah, Greek mythology, blah, we covered this, blah, to here. Posters stay up, I never take them down. Oh, when I tell stories, I'm going to be pointing to the posters with my little laser pointery thing. So as I go through and tell you a story about Dionysus turning into a dolphin and killing pirates, I'll keep pointing to that picture, or I'll point to the picture over here on that wall, because it tends to make it easier for you to visualize if you can see the poster. Plus, when we get to a quiz, and you're like, what god turned into a dolphin? Oh yeah! And you look over there and hopefully it jogs your memory if I point to it and then tell the story. At least that's my thinking to try and help you out. If you have questions, it's most likely going to be, we'll get to that, because almost every question you have about Greek mythology, I can get to. It's just I can't get to it all the same day. Plus, when you ask random questions, I'll just learn to ignore you and then not call on you at all. Because technically there is a god of cheeseburgers, because we have a god of meat, and we have a god of grain, and we have a god of eating. So it would be all three of those together. Oh, and then raising your hand, oftentimes I'm going to learn to ignore you, because I already know the answer to your question. The answer to your question is... There you go. We'll get to that. I know. Stop ranting. So, I touched on this before. Mythology is religion stories. This seems to throw kids off. None of this is real. None of these gods existed. But the Greeks believed they were. The Greeks believed you could meet and have a conversation with Zeus. That there was a chance you could run into Hermes just out on the road somewhere. They very much believed these were real beings. But they weren't. Along those same lines, if you're a Christian, you very much believe in Jesus. But if you're not a Christian, then you don't necessarily believe in him or the power that goes along with him. That's the joy of religion. If your question is, Mr. Brovicast, if none of this is real, why are you teaching it? If you didn't realize, except for the few nonfiction things we did this year, everything I've taught you is fake. That's the joy of English. Everything I teach is made up. They're all made up stories. It's just these made up stories tend to be a bit more entertaining because it involves killing your sister and attacking babies and stuff like that, which for some reason kids seem to really enjoy. Plus, the more we get into it, the more you're going to see connections to video games and TV, and we're going to through the thing like, wait a minute, is that why in the game I play they call it? Yes, almost every time is a
Fortnite
connection
teacher
we
was
find
fake.
out. So yeah, Fortnite steals a lot from Greek mythology. Hi, Allie, what's up?
Are you sure that people don't believe in mythology?
No person who's sane believes in them. I mean, there might be a special person, but for the most part, no. There is no Church of Greek mythology. There's no Church of Zeus. There is no current day religion that is active with it. Now, there's people who probably pray to a pineapple, so there might be people who are out there who do, but it is not an active one, like Christianity or Judaism or something like that. You will not have a day with Mrs. Randall where she brings in someone to talk about Zeus as like the guy that you're supposed to pray to. And this has already been happening so far today, just to give you a heads up. As you guys start getting excited and yelling at me, it's going to require me to charge you points, because for some reason you're going to start liking learning. Hi, Nick.
On the white paper for chrono,
Uh-huh.
spelled with a...
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a moment, too. One of the joys of Greek mythology, there's different spellings of all these different names, because they weren't written down. The people who told these stories were all illiterate, so they don't know how to spell Kronos. So when we get to Cronus, the way it's spelled on my paper is different than the way that's up there on that poster, which is different than this poster, which is different than a hand. Is like sometimes it's spelled Kronos, sometimes Cronus, sometimes CH. As long as it begins with a K, has a run in the middle, and ends with a S, then you're good. So the spelling's not quite as important. And that also makes it confusing to figure out if it's the same God, and the answer is,
So what about Corona?
yeah, not Coronis. That's a different god. That's the god of diseases. But Cronus, which is a different guy. And then, on the off chance you're absent, you have to watch the videos. I know you guys
I don't
make
want
fun of that,
to.
but I'm just telling you now, if you don't, it's fine. But I have no way of recapping the stories. So if you don't watch it and we get to the quiz and you go, I don't know 4 of these, I'll go, well, you were absent. Did you watch the video? And you'll go, no. And I'll go, oh, well, sucks for you. So that's where you have, there's no other way to get you the information. You have to watch. Or don't be absent. Let's begin. So now, here's how we're going to do our intro thing to get you guys into it. The words behind me belong in each one of these categories. Gods, places, things, other stuff. A god is like a person or a being that you can communicate with. And then you're going to get places, which is going to be a location that you go to. Things, which is going to be like a thing you can touch, like a shoe or a desk. And then other stuff, which means it does not fit into any of the other categories. So I'm going to have you, if you look at your handout, the white one, the blue one we won't really need until tomorrow and Wednesday. The white one is the main one you're going to need now. If you look on that, it'll help you out. The posters will also help you out. And you can sort of look around from there. Hang on one moment. I'll be back to you guys. Figure out where you think it goes, and I'll sort of give you a little background story that goes along with it. So you have either option A, look at white sheet. Option B, look at posters. For some of you, you have option C, your own knowledge because you've played video games or read a book or seen a TV show. And for others of you, you have option D, randomly guessing because you have no idea. I'm fine with any of that. All right. So the first one's chaos. You're going to figure out which category you think it goes into, and then you're going to raise your hand when I get to the category. So, do you think chaos goes in gods, places, things, other stuff? We're going to try this again because a bunch of you are losers and you just sat there and stared at me. So you're going to have to figure out which category you think it goes into. This is where option D comes in, guessing. We'll try again. All right. Hi, Destiny.
Would things be like objects?
Okay. Let's go with gods,
Ooh.
places, things, other stuff. See? All of you are correct. It goes in all 4. Chaos is a god, a place, a thing, and another stuff. If you look on your the family tree, and you go to the very top of the family tree, the top thing listed is chaos. And so chaos in Greek mythology was this giant swirling ball of nothingness that eventually got bored being nothing and then split to become the first two gods, earth and sky. So technically, its other stuff is it was a swirling ball of nothing. It's also a place because it split to form the earth and sky. The earth and sky had babies that became the gods. So technically, if it created the gods, it's a god. And it's also a thing because it's a swirling ball of nothing. And you can touch it. See? What am I touching right now? Nothing.
Nothing.
See? That's,
Technically, you can't touch anything.
I'm not touching anything. I'm touching nothing.
Yeah, because
Because what you
the
feel
atoms
is forced to
doesn't work like
resistance
that.
between the
Cronus! Our next one. Figure out where you want to put Cronus. And God,
Yeah.
place, thing, other stuff is correct. God is Cronus. Sometimes spelled, most often C-R-O-N-U-S. I think it's spelled the same way on your little handouty thing. Is that? He's underneath the little Titans area and stuff like that. But we'll get to behind where Julian is. This is Cronus up here. He's the guy wearing the adorable cheerleading miniskirt with his shirt off so he can flex on people. Those are little tiny humans that he's getting ready to hit. The thing he's holding, I know it's hard to see with the reflection from the lights, which I apologize, is a scythe. Good job, myself. So the scythe is what you use to chop down trees in Fortnite. It's also what you use to chop down your father if you're a Greek god.
Yay!
Hi, Nick.
Fortnite.
The Thanos man.
Uh-huh.
Is he just considered as death?
And Thanos was also connected to Greek mythology. On your handout is Thanatos, which is a slightly different one. But when they created the comic book character, they went off of Thanos from Thanatos. They just sort of shifted it slightly. Charlie?
Did he snap his fingers to kill
He
everybody?
did not, just in the comic books. Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Oh man.
Hades! And we'll go gods,
That's me.
places, things, other stuff. How many of you guys are familiar with Hades because of the cartoon from Disney with the blue flamey hair thing?
I guess.
I love him.
What's that? What's that?
Island.
I just yes.
If you're familiar with Greek mythology from that cartoon, the drawback is almost everything in that cartoon is wrong with Greek mythology. It's like they just took the names and then randomly wrote a story.
What?
In Greek mythology,
Liars.
Hades was not evil, he was not mean, nor did he hate Zeus. Hades and Zeus were friends. I mean, they're brothers, but also friends, and they hung out with each other all the time. Hades, and I'll get to you in a second, Allie, is again back over here behind Julian, which for me has a bad reflection on it. He is this really dark dude over here, looking like he's wearing a big black hoodie.
He's emo!
That's what he was. Hades wasn't evil. He was the shy, quiet kid who painted his fingernails black and just wanted to sit in the back of the room playing guitar, listening to music, and ignoring other people. Problem is, people wouldn't let him do that. People kept talking to him. And he didn't like people talking to him or gods talking to him, which would make him lash out and hurt people. He's like, "Hi, Hades, how are you doing?" He's like, "Stop talking." "No, we like you, Hades." He's like, "Ah!" And then he'd lash out, kill somebody. And they're like, "Oh, no, you're evil." He wasn't evil if you would just leave him
You just
alone.
need a Kit Kat.
So he got himself a bad reputation as being mean when all he was the quiet kid that wanted to be left alone. He also was not very creative. The place where he lived was also called Hades because he didn't want people talking. They're like, "What are you going to call the place?" He's like, "Hades." Like, "No, that's your name." He's like, "Hades." Like, "Okay, we'll just call it Hades." And so that was also the place where he lived. And also Greek mythology, hell does not exist in Greek mythology. That is Christianity. And so in Greek mythology, the Hades was for both good and bad people. If you were Mother Teresa and went around saving orphans, you went to Hades. If you were Hitler and you hated everybody, you went to Hades. In Greek mythology, both Mother Teresa and Hitler are both down there high-fiving each other. It was for everybody. And so they did not worry about you being punished for stuff like that. Allie?
I found Hades.
Oh, wow, throwing shade. And Nick?
So, would Hades also be a place?
It is, you are correct. It is both a place and a person. I only listed it in the one because it made it easier on me, but yes, I would recommend it also being the place too. Hi, Carrington.
Okay, tell me this. Did these gods actually have power?
They did.
Powers?
They did. Like superpowers?
Like fire?
Some of them did.
I want fire.
Not so much. They didn't really have like what you guys think of superhuman powers, like shooting fire, as much as they couldn't really be hurt or killed, and they lived a long time. But the only ones that had powers like Zeus, but even that, with the lightning bolts, he had a bucket that had lightning bolts in it. And so, like,
What?
we'll get to it. And so, like, Hermes could run fast was because of his equipment. He had shoes on that would allow him to run fast. Hermes' only superpower was ADHD. He just couldn't sit still the whole time. And so a lot of them don't necessarily have, like, Aphrodite could make people fall in love, but not because it was a power as much as she was just incredibly gorgeous. It would make people feel loving while around her. So it was not quite like Marvel superpowers as much as just like
I knew it.
humans that had skills.
I did.
Grant?
You did not stop capping out of your mind. Because I didn't believe in the powers.
Wasn't there a god who got in trouble for teaching humans fire?
Yep, we're going to get to that one also. You are
There's
correct.
one fire?
Let's go to Underworld. Figure out where you want to put that one. And gods, places, things, other stuff.
Wait,
It goes
what are we
in.
doing? Why are we raising our hands?
So Underworld is the same thing as Hades. Are you guys familiar with Bloody Mary? Would you say the thing?
Oh
It's
my
also
God.
Candyman. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
Slightly different. In Greek mythology, the Greeks believed if you said a god's name, there was a chance they would show up to talk to you. If you just went, I really miss Zeus, that there was a chance that he would just suddenly show up in front of you like, hey man, what are you doing?
Guess
And
what?
talk to you.
Come down.
Problem is, Hades was a grumpy god. And if you said his name and he showed up, like let's say that, you know, for some reason all of a sudden Farah drops over dead in the middle of class. Like, no, Farah, she's dead. Like, where is she now? Well, now she's down in Hades. The name of the god and the name of the place were the same. And the fear was if you said Farah is down in Hades, the god would show up and be like, hey, did you say my name? You're like, no, I didn't mean. Then in his grumpiness, he would grab you and then take you down with him. So to prevent that, humans never said the word Hades out loud. They would always refer to him like a nickname. Yeah, because again, not a religion now. Now we know.
That
Back
is
then,
never true.
Hades, you just can't hear.
remember the part where we talked about how many points kids lose during this unit? I know.
I didn't know.
I think we talked about it last
Oh
week.
yeah. What is it?
Not. So, because of that, they started calling him nicknames like the old one, or the grumpy one, or the dark one, or Voldemort, or any number of different names like that. Same thing with where he lived. When Farah died, they would go, oh no, Farah went to under the world. And they're like, oh, what should we call that place? And the humans went, let's call it Under the World. They're like, no, that's too long. No, let's call it Underworld. And they go, perfect, nailed it. So they ended up calling it Underworld. So they were not very creative at all. Hi, Nick.
What if you said chaos?
What about chaos?
What if you said chaos?
Chaos was gone by this time because chaos had already separated and become all these different things, so you weren't not a problem. And the other gods, it wasn't a worry about because they weren't thought to be as grumpy. Hades was the only really grumpy Gus out there. You know how those kids are sometimes.
He's dumb.
Right. Seems a little mean.
My turn.
Titans. Figure out where you're going to put that one. And gods, places, things, other stuff. And here is where your guys' history with finding out about Greek mythology through media comes back to haunt you. The Titans are gods. They're the exact same thing. All of these pictures you see, those are Titans. The little posters, except for Pan, the one right above Ling, he's not. All the other ones are Titans. In Greek mythology, a Titan and a god were the same thing. A Titan was just a really tall being that could live for thousands of years and that we looked just like because they created us to look like them because, again, they weren't very creative. There are other types of gods in Greek mythology. There's these things called Nymphs, which was their version of elves. Not like Dobby from Harry Potter, or not like Keebler elves. And they also, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, they weren't tall elves. They were basically like really thin
Christmas elves.
children. And they just sort of, not quite like Christmas elves, they weren't short people. They were just like younger, thin humans, and they had the little pointed ears. In Greek mythology, they also had like normal nymphs. They had wood nymphs who lived in trees, water nymphs who lived in oceans, and sea nymphs who lived in the ocean, which apparently there was a difference between a sea nymph and a water nymph, because why not? And so they had all of these different types of elves that were out there who also lived a long time, but at the same time, they weren't titans. So if you saw the big blue hair Hercules movie, the titans were monsters. In actual Greek mythology, they weren't monsters. They were just these dudes and chicks that you see. Carrington.
Okay, so I figured it out, right? When people grow up, right?
Mhm.
Some of them are midgets,
Mm-hmm.
regular, and then some are tall, right?
Good job.
The midgets are the elves.
Right.
The regular people, the regular height people,
Uh-huh.
are like the regular town villagers.
Uh-huh.
The tall people were from like the gods.
The titans. If that works for you, why not?
So you're calling me behind.
Let's go with
Huh?
Mercurial. So figure out on this one. To help you out, if you turn over the sheet, not the family tree, but if you look at the non-family tree white side, we don't need the blue sheet till tomorrow, no matter how much you can squint at me. And then you look in the Olympian area, you're going to see a name that is similar to Mercurial.
Messenger. Oh.
And so it connects to Hermes, because what's Hermes' Roman name? Mercury. Mercury. Oh, wait. I didn't have you guys vote yet. Let's see which category you put it into before I tell you. Gods, places, things, other stuff. Other stuff is correct. Mercurial is a word that comes from Roman mythology. Hermes, the dude right there who looks like he's doing the Heisman Trophy pose, Hermes, his Roman name was Mercurial. He was the messenger of the gods, like the original mailman. He was also the original ADHD and could not sit still. And Mercurial is a thing that means to change quickly. It can either be, have you guys ever seen when they take the Mentos and they put it into like the Diet Coke and it goes called, that is a Mercurial reaction, meaning it does so quickly. If you've ever watched ice freeze, that's not Mercurial, that's slow. So Mercurial means a thing that happens instantaneously.
So you run.
Oftentimes with teenagers, they have Mercurial personalities, where you guys seem to be in a really good mood, and then all of a sudden you see that one kid like, oh, I hate everybody. And then like you walk into science, you're like, life is awful. And then you come to English, you're like, life is great. Yeah. It's like that goes back. Mercurial just means to change quickly, which seems to fit some of you guys very well.
Hey.
Some of your B points are Mercurial because they tend to change quickly. Let's go to Olympians.
Oh,
And now you're in single digits. You've already burnt through all of those points you had.
Oh.
imagine.
Olympians. We'll go with gods,
Wait.
places, things, other stuff, and Olympians is correct. It's gods. There's 12 big posters. Those right there. Those are Olympians. There is a difference between a Titan and an Olympian. Like Hades, this guy here, and Cronus, that guy there, are not Olympians, but they are Titans. And so an Olympian is a Titan that has a throne, and there can only ever be 12 of them at any one time. There are thousands of Titans out there, but only 12 of them get to be Olympians. Just like there's thousands of 7th graders, but there's only 150 heroes, because a hero is a kid that gets to have me as a teacher. So, and because some of you are very, very special. And so it's the same idea that the Olympians are the same thing as Titan. They just only get to be in the... Did he just lean over and kiss your hand?
Who?
Or is he just kissing away his B points?
I was headbutting.
That's that what that was. Did not come across as creepy at all. Olympians. Next up, Atlas. And this one can go in 2 categories technically. Gods, places, things, other stuff,
Place.
Atlas is both a god
And place.
and a thing.
What the
What
Uh,
the frick? Like,
There's a good chance you have seen Atlas at some point. He is the one that's holding, it looks like a planet on his back, looks like a big strong guy. I do not have a poster of him.
and Hercules?
Could be. Oftentimes there's a Gold's Gym is like a big weightlifting place. There's a picture of Atlas because he was like the biggest and strongest of all the gods holding the thing on his back. It is also a thing because it is a book of maps. Back in the day before we had Google Maps, an atlas was a thing you could flip through and it has like all the different like streets and maps and stuff like that. So an atlas is a book of maps. It also connects to the strongest man. The reason that is a book of maps connects to the story we're going to get to about him and him getting tortured. And he doesn't actually hold the world on his back. He's actually holding the sky on his back. But
What?
it sounds really confusing. Well, think about it. If you're holding the world on your back, what are you standing on?
Nothing.
So the
You're
one
standing
that's
on the space.
Right. So actually, he's holding the sky on his back, which is also confusing.
You
Because
can't
you're like,
touch
why would you have to hold the sky?
You
But
can't hold the sky.
we'll get there. Well, you can because we also are going to kill the sky because one of the gods goes up and stabs it and
Yay.
it dies.
So you tell me when
But
you
that's
guys
a
are
story
going.
that we're going to get to.
So how come when I take a knife and go outside?
A lot of Greek mythology is going to have you guys realize that it is not going to make sense. If you
And
keep
it's not
trying to
great.
apply logic to Greek mythology, it is going to hurt your head. It is a lot of just nodding your head going, that makes no sense at all. Those people were very special. And the answer is yes, which is why you guys should like it, because many of you are very special also.
Yay!
I'm a special child. All right, let's go to Styx. Figure out where you. This was a band in the 1970s, but that was a few years before you. Let's go with gods, places, things,
Oh, wait, no, places.
Six or six.
other stuff,
Thing.
and technically can go in more than one spot. Styx
I say places and things.
was originally a god,
That's dumb.
and then became a river.
That's Styx.
Again, Julian's in a good spot today. Behind Julian, Hades, depending on the reflection. Right here next to him is this green river. Styx is the river that separates the underworld from the rest of the world. The quick side story. Styx was not always a river. Styx at one time was a girl, a female titan. And she was friends with Zeus, and she basically fought with him in this big war and helped him out. But she had a horrible personality, was very toxic, was mean to anyone that talked to her, and people hated her. But she was a great warrior and was very impressive.
That was
End of the war, Zeus goes, hey, I'm going to give you any wish because you stayed with me and you did not change sides and we helped win because of you. What is the one thing you want? And she went, to be a river. And he goes, no, like seriously. Like, what would you like? Like a high five or like a biscuit or something? She's like, no, a river. She's like, I want to be a river. He goes, like
That's dumb.
Splash River? She's like, Splash River. He goes, okay. Boom. And she was like, ah! And turned into a river.
I'd like to be a river.
Problem. I don't have that power. Problem is, when she turned into a river, her horrible, toxic, nasty personality turned her into a poisonous river. So when he put it into this woods as a river, it killed everything. Like all the grass next to it died. Every time animals went up to drink from it, they died. And he ended up having this river with just dead things all along it. So people started complaining, going, we're dying because of this water. So Zeus goes, fine, I'll move the river for you. And he figured there's only one safe place to put a river where it can't kill anybody. And that would be
no, by the underworld.
in the underworld, because he figures it's not going to kill anyone down there. Turns out, he's wrong. River was so poisonous, it could kill dead people, which is a story that we're going to get to. Because you would think, but they're already dead. And the answer is yes, but you can always be deader, which is a thing that would happen.
That means you didn't fail.
There you go. You just got to really commit to your deadification. And then we'll stop there. We'll pick up with Scythe tomorrow.
Wait,
Wait, so they die, come back, and then die?